Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for your patience tonight. I'm Attorney General Linda Kelly, and joining me are members of the prosecution team and investigators on this case, some of whom you probably recognize from their roles in the courtroom. And can you hear me? Okay. All right. And others who you may recognize from their behind-the-scenes work in this case. We have Joseph P. McGettigan, right here. Frank Vina and Janelle Eschbach from the Attorney Generals, who were the trial team in this case. Major Brett Wagoner from the Pennsylvania State Police. Special Agent Tony Sassano, and Regional Director Randy Feathers from our State College office. These men and women, along with many other agents, troopers, investigators, attorneys, and other staff of the Attorney General's Office of Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania State Police, have worked tirelessly for the last few years to bring these charges to light, to bring this case to court, and to see the day that this defendant, a serial child predator who committed horrific acts upon his victims, causing lifelong and life-changing consequences for all of them, has been held accountable for his crimes. And I'd like to thank each of the individuals that I just mentioned for the very important role that they played in bringing this case to today's verdict. I also want to offer my most sincere thanks to all the young men, the victims in this case, who came forward to bravely testify during this trial. And to finally put a stop to the crimes that have been committed by this defendant. They've shown great strength and courage during this investigation, candidly and sometimes chillingly, telling their stories not only to the jury and a packed courtroom audience here in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, but also to the entire world. It was incredibly difficult for some of them to unearth long-buried memories of the shocking abuse they suffered at the hands of this defendant. And most of us cannot possibly fully comprehend what they endured when testifying in that packed courtroom. This trial was not something that they sought, but rather something that forced them to face the demons of their past and to reveal what happened to them and their childhood when they met Jerry Sandusky. We hope that our search for justice in this case will help them and other victims who perhaps have been watching from afar and perhaps nearby as this case unfolded. One of the recurring themes of the witnesses' testimony, which came from the voices of the victims themselves in this case, was, who would believe a kid? And the answer to that question is, we here in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, would believe a kid. And I think that I speak not only for my own agency, but for law enforcement across the country when I say we would believe a kid. And as reflected by this verdict that we've all just heard, a jury of 12 people here in Bellefonte, PA, most definitely would and did believe a kid. Although we know that the scars that these victims bear can't be erased by the events in a courtroom, we hope that the outcome of this case not only allows these victims to heal and to begin the process of recovering and rebuilding their lives, but that it also encourages other victims of sexual abuse to come forward. This is a crime that thrives in darkness. It's fed by fear and threats, shame and secrecy, where predators carefully seek the most vulnerable prey, while often they themselves are cloaked in respectability that sometimes is almost beyond reproach. Of all the thousands of cases that stream through our judicial system, every once in a while, one will, for a brief moment, capture the attention of the eyes of the world, mesmerizing us until it plays itself out and its stardom begins to fade. I think that we've all recognized since the return of the grand jury presentment in this case, in this matter, that this was one of those uncommon cases, and that the eyes of the world have since then been upon us. You, the media, have covered the proceedings in this case with exceptional attentiveness and thoroughness, and you've produced much thoughtful commentary and insightful analysis over the course of this trial, resulting, I think, in the raising of the consciousness of your readers and listeners. Sir, I'll answer that question if you wait until the end of this. Resulting in the raising of the consciousness of your readers and listeners and an increased awareness by the public of the monstrous acts that can be committed by sexual predators like the defendant in this case, who live among us, who may appear to be pillars of the community, coaching icons, sports legends, and charitable executives extraordinaire, but who calculatingly and with meticulous planning mercilessly prey upon the most vulnerable members of our society. They carefully select their victims, in this case, as you know, underprivileged kids, kids from broken homes, foster homes, one-parent families, and many of them having other issues like learning, behavioral, and emotional problems to deal with as well. And all of whom, in their time of need, turned to the charity known as the Second Mile, where we now know that Jerry Sandusky trolled for victims. There are many important lessons that can be learned from this case. One of them is that we can't let the national focus that this case has brought upon child sexual abuse fade after these cameras are turned off and the media has shifted their attention to the next important story. We have to continue to focus on child sexual abuse and to shine a bright light in those dark, dark places where the Jerry Sanduskys of the world lurk, places which definitely exist in our society. We need to continue to protect our children and to learn from the lessons of this case. And as for those who fail to respond to reports of child sexual abuse, their behavior is abominable and has tragic consequences for young victims like the ones that you heard from during the last 2 weeks. These kids need our help, they need our support, and we as a society must not turn our backs or close our eyes or try to convince ourselves that it doesn't exist when it in fact does exist. This is a law enforcement issue, and every police department and investigative agency across the country should take note of this case and ensure that every claim of child sexual abuse is addressed promptly and investigated thoroughly, with the understanding that where there's one victim, there very likely are more. This is also an institutional issue. Every institution that comes into contact with children should operate under the premise that it's their legal responsibility to report suspected child abuse. The legal part of this is easy to grasp, but more importantly, there's a moral and ethical imperative to do so. Concealing or attempting to minimize this type of crime is unacceptable, as well as unconscionable, and should not and cannot be tolerated. This is also a family issue, and hopefully parents across the country will learn from this case how important it is to be vigilant about your child's personal interactions with others, and to make sure that your child is conscious of their own safety and aware that they must report these types of incidents. And finally, this is a community issue. Because outside of our roles as prosecutors and police officers and professionals, we all have an interest in keeping our communities, and particularly our children, safe and secure, and protecting our children, who really are, truly, our most valuable natural resource, and they should always be our priority. Every one of us has a responsibility to be aware of the possibility of this type of crime and to speak out if you note something troubling. I thank all of you for your patience and your dedication in covering this case. Your work, too, has carried this story and the lessons that go hand in hand with it far beyond the borders of Center County, and it's helped immeasurably to raise awareness about this kind of issue. If there are people out there watching right now who have been victims of sexual abuse, as part of any case anywhere, I encourage you to contact authorities in your community and seek the support and assistance that you need. There are no instant solutions to this problem, but working together, we can hope to make progress. We can help the voices of victims be heard, and we can try and drive away the demons and the darkness and lift the veil of secrecy that allows predators to hide and to operate in our midst. The Commonwealth's interest in a case like this, in this kind of criminal prosecution, is not merely to win the case, but to see that justice shall be done. The twofold aim of which is that guilt shall not escape, nor innocence suffer. Our goal here has always been to bring about a fair and a just result in this case. That goal has been accomplished with the jury's verdict today, and we believe that justice has been served. Thank you very much, and I'd like to give the state police here a chance to say a few words.
Thank you, General Kelly. My name is Major Brett Wagoner of the Pennsylvania State Police. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. I stand here as representative for the Commissioner of the State Police, Colonel Frank Noonan. I echo the comments offered up by General Kelly, and I thank her and her agency for the cooperation we received throughout this investigation. I salute the prosecutors that prosecuted this case. I think we all saw what this gentleman did in the courtroom. I salute him for that. But there was a lot of other work by the prosecution that went unseen, and that was Mr. Frank Fina and his staff and what they put together to bring this to a success. The officers and agents from the Pennsylvania State Police and Attorney General assigned to this case, they took it personal. They were dedicated to it. For the last 2 weeks, they've been away from their families. Many have already headed down the highway to reunite with them. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of what they accomplished. I'm proud of their effort. As a police officer, you learn pretty quick that you need courage in order to do this job. That doesn't mean you don't have fear. It means you have to work through your fear and be courageous to do that job. I submit to you what those 8 young men did coming into this courthouse and worked through their fear and the courage that they showed. They are the heroes of this investigation, and to them, we will eternally be grateful. Thank you.